dear students. So now we are going to start the second part of the immunology, in which we are going to discuss about the second line of defense. In the last lecture we discussed about the general overview about the immune system, its basic components, and the first line of defense, which is more mechanical and physical in nature. Now the second line of defense, it comes into play when the first line of defense is actually broken or breached. See, for example, as you can see this picture, that there is a cut in which the skin membrane has been cut and the inner side is actually exposed. So then comes the components of second line, and these are generally the cells, antimicrobial chemicals, processes, but there are no physical barriers involved in this line. Further, the most of the components involved in the second line of defense, they originate from the blood. So the major the formed elements in under this category, they are of three types. The first is the RBC, which is the red blood corpuscles. This include, or we say it as red blood cells, or erythrocytes, whose major function is to carry the oxygen and carbon dioxide in the blood. Then the platelets, which are also known as thrombocytes, they are principally involved in blood clotting. The third component or the third element is the leukocytes, or the white blood cells or white blood corpuscles. They are the main components which are involved in defending the body against the invaders. See, this is the scanning electron micrograph of these three type of cells, and just by looking into their morphology, you can easily make out that what is the function of each of these cells. Like in case of this particular cellular structure, it has got the smooth surface, and it's a disc sort of structure. That means it has to move from one region to another region. So this is definitely the RBC. Then the middle one, it is actually the platelet, and this has got a meshy fibrous kind of network, because its main function is to stop the blood loss, and it is involved in the blood clotting. Then the third component, which you can see that it's a circular one with a certain projections on its surface. So they are involved in actually in the actual protection, where they actually entrap the foreign components which might otherwise have entered into the body. So among this, the major player is actually the WBCs, and there are 5 types of white blood cells. They are categorized on the basis of the presence of certain granular structures as granulocytes and agranulocytes. So granulocytes, they are further divided into 3 types, that is the neutrophils, eosinophils, and basophils. And in case of neutrophil, it constitutes about 50 to 70% of the WBCs. It's the most abundant one, and it is a predominant cell which is in the pus. That is why it is white in color. The pus is white color because of the presence of these neutrophils. Then comes the eosinophil, whose composition is around 1 to 3%, and they are produced in response to allergy or asthma, or in case of parasite killing. The third under the category of granulocyte is the basophil, which is around 1%, and they are principally involved in the allergic reactions. Then comes under the agranulocytes. The first cell is actually the monocytes, which constitutes about 4%, and they, on maturation, they become macrophages, which are involved in the phagocytosis. Then another type of cell, the lymphocytes, which are the major part of our third line of defense, which are involved in the specific immunity, and they constitute about 33% of the blood cells, and they are involved in the directing the immune system. So the major components of second line defense includes the WBCs, which extracellular killing by leukocytes, the non-specific chemical defenses, inflammation, and fever. So the first component under this is actually the phagocytosis. Phagocytosis is actually a process whereby these macrophages, which are actually the matured monocytes, which are capable of ingesting and digesting the exogenous antigens like whole microorganisms, insoluble particles, and endogenous matters such as injured or dead host cells, cellular debris, and activated clotting factors. Now these macrophages, they remain in circulation, or they remain in the blood circulation, and they are attracted by and they move towards a variety of substances generated in an immune response by a process which is known as chemotaxis. So when these phagocytes or circulating macrophages, they recognize any foreign particle, what do? They adhere to these antigens, and by means of actually the membranous expaginations or evagination, which are known as pseudopodia. Now with this, it is then ingested, forming the phagosome. Then this phagosome gets integrated with the lysosomes, which contains the hydrolytic enzymes, and these hydrolytic enzymes then digest these bacterial or the microbial components, and then the digested products are released from the cell and by a process known as exocytosis. Now the next important component is the natural killer cells, which are involved in the extracellular killing. These are basically the effector lymphocytes of the innate immune system that controls the several types of tumors and microbial infections by limiting their spread and subsequent tissue damage. Sometimes they also secrete the toxins onto the surface of virally infected cells and tumors. Then they mainly attack the parasitic worms by attaching to their surface. Sometimes they release certain or secrete certain toxins that weaken or kill the worms, and this is actually indicated by the elevated eosinophil levels, which is indicative of a helminth infection. Now they can also create the active ingredient in bleach to kill the nearby microbes. And another form which is important in the case of extracellular killing is the NET, which is neutrophil extracellular traps, which can entrap these microorganisms in a fibrous matrix and kill these bacteria or fungi, and further they also secrete the antimicrobial proteins. So these are all the things which are there in the case of extracellular killing, and the major player in this again is actually the leukocytes. Now the next comes the non-specific chemical defenses, in which the major players are actually the lysozymes, which are the specific enzymes, defensins and cytokines like interferons and interleukins. So you can see mostly these are actually proteinaceous in nature, that is why I put the structures further. They initiate a cascade of reactions, right? So in case of this, the cytokines, for example, if I quote here as IL-1, it actually activates IL-2, then to IL-3, then 4, and so on. This I'm not saying it technically, but I just want to make this clear to you all that there are series of reactions which are generated whereby these cytokines are activated, and each cytokine has a particular function to do, and finally they all serve the purpose, that is either they augment the phagocytosis, some of them attack the pathogens directly, some enhance the features of the non-specific resistance. So they all work in a series finally or ultimately to achieve these functions of non-specific resistance. Then another in this series is the inflammation and the tissue damage which is caused by a wound or by an invading pathogenic microorganism. It induces a complex sequence of events which are known as inflammatory response. You can see this picture, and this is actually a typical picture of an inflammation, and there was a famous theory which was given by Roman physician Celsus, who described that there are 4 cardinal signs of inflammation. The first is a rubor, which means the redness, you can see over here. Then the tumor, that is the swelling. Third is a calor, that means the heat is generated. This region becomes little hot as compared to the other regions because it is richly supplied with the blood. Then there is a higher blood flow to this region, and the last one is a dolor, that means the pain is there. So principally you can see over here, whenever there is a tissue damage and then where the first line of defense is breached, then what happens, there are certain inflammatory mediators, the commonest one being the histamine. There are other mediators also, like the kinin is there, these C active phase proteins are there, but the major one is actually the histamine, which sends the signals and causes the release of certain vasoactive and chemotactic factors, which triggers the really increase blood flow and the capillary permeability. So in this case, because of an increase in the diameter of blood vessels or nearby capillaries, which occurs due to vasodilation, that carries, in that case, they carry the blood away from the affected area, constrict, resulting in the engorgement of the capillary network. And the engorged means engorged capillaries are then responsible for the tissue damage and an increase in the tissue temperature. Now, after this the increase in the capillary permeability, it facilitates an influx of fluid and cells from engorged capillaries into the tissue. So you can see over here there is an increased blood flow because of an increased dilation. More of actually these yellow ones are actually the macrophages. These are the cellular components. There is an increased blood flow to that region, and then the next stage is that the capillary permeability gets increased. That means now these cellular components can easily move from this region to this region. So the process in which these macrophages, they attach to the surface of these cell lining, the capillary cell lining, it is known as margination. Then the process by which these macrophages, they then move from this capillary region into the site of injury, it is known as diapedesis. Okay, now, and then attachment of these components or macrophages to actually the bacterial components, it is known as extra, or reaching to the tissue damaged site, it is known as extravasation. Now, after this, when these phagocytes and bacterial cells, at the last stage, these phagocytes and antibacterial exudates, they destroy the bacteria. So this is about the entire process of inflammation. Another one is a fever. This is also a protective response. Whenever there is a increase in the temperature above the normal range of 36.5 to 37.5 degrees C, it leads to a condition known as fever, and it results when the chemicals called pyrogens, they trigger the hypothalamus to increase our body's core temperature. The process is like whenever there is a pathogen, if it has gained the entry, it activates the leukocytes to release certain cytokines. These cytokines further act on the anterior region of the hypothalamus to produce certain prostaglandins, which in turn increase the temperature of our body. So these pyrogens means these the pathogenic components which might lead to the increase in the fever response. It is basically these are the bacterial toxins, the cytoplasm of bacteria released by lysis, antibody antigen complexes, interleukin 1, it's a type of IL-1A cytokine. So the benefit is that under the feverish response, that is when the temperature gets increased, the speed of the immune system increases. Second, it inhibits the growth of some temperature sensitive microorganisms. And another problem with this fever response is that when the increase or hike in the temperature becomes uncontrollable, then it is actually the thing of an issue. Then the last one under this second line of defense is the complement system. The complement system is basically it consists of a number of small proteins that are synthesized by the liver, and they circulate in the blood as the inactive precursors. And when stimulated by one or several triggers, the proteases in the system, they cleave these specific proteins to release the cytokines and initiate the cascade of reactions, ultimately leading to kill the any foreign intruder. So its multiple activities are in this forms. That is, first is the lysis, whereby this red colored region includes the complement proteins, which when activated they directly attach to the target cell surface and kill them. Second is opsonization, whereby these proteins, activated proteins, they attach to the surface of these bacteria, and because of this attachment of these opsonins or so-called complement proteins, it becomes easily recognizable to the phagocytes, and they then attach to it and then kill it. Third is the activation of inflammatory response, whereby again they bind to it, and then they bind to these phagocytes and they are easily recognizable to them, and then by the process of inflammation they are destroyed. Last one is the clearance of immune complexes, whereby these antigens they are bound to the antibodies, which are then recognized by the phagocytes, and then they are cleared out from the body. So this is more specific response. Now there are three pathways by which the complement activation takes place. The first is the classical pathway, then the lectin pathway, and the alternative pathway. Together in the complement system, there are the three group of serum proteins which have been designated as C1, 2, 3, 4 up to 9. So it is not on the basis of their cascade, their order in the cascade reaction. It is on the basis of their discovery that they have been named as the C1, 2, 3 and up to 9. Right now, the first pathway in this is actually the classical pathway, which is initiated when the C1, see this initiates from the C1, it is initiated when the C1 binds to the anti-AGN antibody complex. Then the alternative pathway actually is initiated when the binding of spontaneously generated C3b is to activating surfaces such as microbial cell walls. Now last one, that is the lectin pathway, is initiated by binding of the serum protein mannose MBL, that is the mannose binding lectin to the surface of pathogens. Now all of these pathways, they generate the C3 and the C5 convertases and the bound C5b, which is converted into the membrane attack complex and finally leading to the lysis of the entrapped pathogen. So these A and B, these are basically the fragments of C3, whereby the one is a larger fragment and the another one is a smaller fragment. So normally in this case, the A is the smaller fragment and the B is the larger fragment. But again, depending on the type of mediators which are generated, they serve the different function. That is, C3b is involved in the opsonization, C3a and 5a, they are involved in inflammation, and the C5b is the major player in the case of the formation of membrane attack complex leading to lysis. So with this we come to the end of the second line of defense. Thank you.